Hi there and welcome to this Seal U DM-i handover video. My name's Aidan Smith and in today's video we're going to go through lots of features. But don't worry, if you want to learn something in particular, you'll be able to skip to the point in this video of your liking. So firstly we're going to talk about trim levels. There are 3 different trim levels for the Seal U DM-i, a boost, comfort and design. The boost and the design both feature an 18.3 kilowatt-hour BYD Blade battery, with the boost offering up to 50 miles of electric range and the design offering up to 43 miles of electric range. A little bit less on the design as it features all-wheel drive instead of the boost and comfort that feature front-wheel drive. The comfort model, which is this one here, features a larger 26.6 kilowatt-hour Blade battery capable of up to 77 miles of electric range. So firstly we'll go through key button features. We can lock the car with this button, we can unlock the car with this one, we can press this button twice to open up the electronic tailgate, and finally this button for 3 to 4 seconds if you hold it will get all the vents running inside the car, perfect for the winter period. Now comes to understanding charging and cables for the Seal U DM-i. All Seal U DM-is will come as standard with a Type 2 charging cable like this, which charges up to 11 kilowatts. Now 11 kilowatts charging, 15 to 100% for a smaller battery is around 2 hours, with the larger battery being around about 3.5 hours. So you have that as standard. The next thing you'll receive as standard is the vehicle to load adapter. You might have heard of this feature, where you can plug it directly into the charging port and power devices off of the power battery. It's a fantastic feature to use, and even when the battery is empty in this car, it can continue to use the engine a bit like a generator. A fantastic feature. Finally, there are a few other little differences. You can optionally purchase a 3-pin charger for this car and charge it a 3-pin, but then you can also rapid charge this car, which is a fantastic feature for a plug-in hybrid. You can charge up to 18 kilowatts in charging speed, and that smaller battery from 30 to 80% will take around 35 minutes, and the larger battery around 55 minutes from 30 to 80%. So before we get into any further buttons, I want to take some time to talk about the DMI technologies. The Seal U DM-i has some amazing plug-in hybrid technologies and works differently from most plug-in hybrids out there on the market. But there are a few different options and things that you can change inside the vehicle depending on how you're driving. So firstly, we're going to go across to the settings of the car. And you'll notice that when we go into the settings, there is an energy button here, and we can go to the energy manager, which gives me a choice of options. I'm going to talk you through them now. Firstly, we have our regenerative braking, which we can set to standard or high. This is where the car slows down a little bit in aid to gather energy and charge up the battery if and where it can. In standard mode, it feels a bit more like coasting in a normal internal combustion engine car. And in high, it's going to be a bit heavier. The next thing I want to talk to you about is our SOC settings. I have a little slider here that I can drag high and low, and that's the percentage of the battery. That sets a target area for the battery to explore to get to. And in the auto and save modes that you can see here, auto means it's going to automatically try to do that. The save mode will try and save that battery range for a later occasion. A good example of this is if you're driving down the motorway and the last 10 miles of your journey is through the fields, you want to save that journey for a later part of the occasion. The last thing to explain down here is the energy display mode, which can either be mileage or SOC, which is state of charge. So for example, when the car is completely empty, okay, it's going to show a state of charge of 7%, for example, okay? Now, as part of that, what you'll find is that the mileage could be 0, but the percentage will not be 0%. The reason for that is because the last 20%, 0 to 20%, it will not let you have access to that. The DMI technologies want to run in the background to keep the car as efficient as possible. So just bear in mind that if the mileage is set to 0 miles, the percentage will not be set to 0. It will fluctuate up and down, and that is perfectly normal behaviour as the car tries to maintain and run as efficiently as possible. So now we're going to go through some basic seating, mirror and steering wheel controls. That allows us to move around the vehicle and just check that we're happy with our positions. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to just sit in the seat nice and comfortably. We'll find our electric seat controls down here, and we can move them around. Of course, I can move backwards and forwards. I can adjust everything there. The next thing is going to be our mirror controls. You'll find those over here. There's a button individually for each side of the mirror, and then you can of course move it up, down, left and right to adjust. There's a button at the top also to fold those mirrors. And then finally, it's going to be our steering wheel controls. There's a manual handle that you can just push down here, and you can move that up and down and also out and in to find your best position. Finally, of course, pushing that up firmly to set the position. So on the left indicator stalk here, I can of course adjust and change my lighting settings. That's also where my indicators are. On the end here, we also have a button which allows us to see the trip computer in the corner of this screen. On the right-hand side here, this is where we control our windscreen wipers. So on the end here, we can adjust our back windscreen wiper. We can then change the intensity or intermittency of the windscreen wiper. And then of course I can click it down once to clear the screen once. And then upwards, we have different intermittent settings for the wipers. With the 360-degree cameras in this car, we can press this button just here, and it will show up all of the cameras onto the screen. If any doors are open, it will stop the camera from viewing, but it's a fantastic feature where we can change different positions to the camera to see different areas of the car. It's standard for the Seal U DM-i and a wonderful feature to use. This car also has the ability to use a smartphone as your car key. You access this through the BYD app, and if you have any further questions about this, please separately refer to a member of staff at your local retailer. But through the app, when the car is connected to the app, you'll have the ability to add the smartphone as a key. The difference here is that you'll just be able to just swipe the smartphone onto the edge of the mirror to lock and unlock the car. And when you get in the car, the phone will need to be placed in this NFC area in the center here. Once you've started the car, you can move the smartphone away, but a fantastic feature also for the Seal U DM-i. So our steering wheel controls on the left-hand side here, we have at the bottom here our adjustments for adaptive cruise control, changing distance, we can change the rockers, and we can activate the lane keeping assistant. At the top, we have a button which activates our 360 cameras. And in the top corner here, we can press this button and it will change the orientation of the screen. I can also do that on the screen here. There's a little button just there that allows me to put it back in place, so that's all good. On this side here, what I then have is I have the feature where I then have the mode button, and I can then of course go through some settings on the screen here. I can also change the volume and track selection. I can accept phone calls, and then finally the Hi BYD feature as well. Now when it comes to our touchscreen controls, our main touchscreen actually has two home pages. The first one here has a few widgets on it, and if we move it to the left, it then has all of our apps that we can choose, and it has a couple of pages for that, lots of different features. Also worth mentioning that we showed, of course, the orientation for screen size. That allows us to change it from landscape to portrait. And then along the bottom here, there's a few different buttons that we can press. We can press a home button that takes us to the home page. We can then go through different buttons here that are going to show us which apps are open at any one time, so I can move through those features. And of course our screen orientation, and I can also set a split screen. Certain apps on the vehicle can be set in a split screen format where one thing shows on the left and one on the right. So we get to this center area here. We've got a dual wireless charging area here. No settings for that. We can just put a phone onto there. It's going to wireless charge. We've got our hazard warning, this button just here, our blind spot detection, and then our auto start stop feature as well. As we go through here, we've got our volume. This is, of course, our button that switches from EV driving mode to HEV. That's going to be dependent on our electric range we have. Moving across here, we've got another mode button. That sets us, of course, into our driving modes. You'll notice that you have slightly different driving modes if you have an all-wheel drive version of this against if you have a four-wheel drive. So the all-wheel drive also has a sand and muddy driving mode that takes advantage of the all-wheel drive. And then up here, we have our front windscreen to turn on the air conditioning, on-off for the air conditioning, and auto for the air conditioning. An excellent feature of the Seal U DM-i is the head-up display, and we can access that through the settings here. If I go down to the settings just through the car, and we go into the vehicle, in the vehicle you'll see a setting that says HUD, stands for heads-up display, and I can go into that and turn it on and off, so whether some people don't like to use it. We can set the height, I can set the brightness, so I can set it to my positioning, and I can also set an angle as well. I can also go further down and set the mode settings and change the colour, depending on what colour is best for you, and I can change some of the optional display content as well. Next, if we wish to pair a phone, it's nice and easy in the Seal U DM-i. We can go across to the settings and go to connected devices and hit add new device. We then follow the instructions on the screen, pairing our phone via Bluetooth. The next thing is it might ask you if you have a compatible smartphone to pair Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, following the instructions on the screen. If you struggle with this, please do get in contact with your local retailer who can help you in more detail. So when it comes to our air conditioning features, okay, we've got a fantastic shortcut which is now in all of our BYD products. You can swipe 3 fingers on the screen up and down to change the temperature, okay, and if you were to move it left and right, it will then turn it on and off. I can then go into the air conditioning settings and turn it off just there, so that just turns it off. And I've then got on this screen a number of features along the top for our rear screen and our mirrors, our front windscreen. I can set the settings for the temperatures for front passenger and driver. Lots of settings throughout there, alongside our shortcuts that I just mentioned. mentioned to you. You'll also see on the front screen that we actually have some shortcuts just here for our heated seats and some main usable features of the air conditioning. And when choosing the driving mode of the DMI technologies, you've got a choice of 2 driving modes. You have EV or HEV, which you can control by pressing on the button down here. Please bear in mind that if you're out of electric range, it's only going to run in HEV mode, which is the plug-in hybrid mode, which engages the engine. Depending on how you're driving, you will find either the engine engages with the wheels, engages the clutch with the wheels, and it drives like a plug-in hybrid, or you might find that the engine doesn't engage the clutch with the wheels, and it drives a bit more like a generator, really improve on that electric efficiency. So when it comes to software updates, this is also an important thing to mention. BYD introduce new features all the time which you have access to through the use of new over-the-air software updates. And the great news with this is you don't need to come into a retailer to get this feature to work. You can do the software updates yourself. We can go through to the settings, and if we go through to the system and go to version, you will see the software information there. The car will let you know if there's a new software update needed, and you'll be able to go in and hit upgrade to the latest software. This software update will usually take between 30 and 90 minutes, and the car cannot be driven in that process. But once it's finished, it's all set up with the latest software and the latest features. And this is where you find the button for the fuel filler cap. If you press this, it will release the lock for the fuel filler cap, and you'll find this on the rear passenger side of the car. A kind reminder that on the rear driver's side is where the charging ports are. Well, that's everything in today's video. If you have any further questions, feel free to get in contact with your local retailer. Thanks very much.